That'll just, now the screen on YouTube will just look here. It's just a little different.
I thought maybe you guys would have been one of the ones behind, like, what the?
Yeah, luckily we didn't.
Amateurs throwing
Oh
stuff.
my gosh, she said it was like the most stressful.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Life.
Because there's a ton of traffic right now.
Yeah, that's what it said,
That
because
was-
I could just see me wrecking it in the first 5
Oh,
minutes,
yeah.
I'd even been on the dumb thing.
And then you have to know how to anchor it. Most people,
Yeah.
some people anchor it like this.
That
Some
he knew
people
how to
anchor it.
do.
That's good.
Because he'd been on.
You know, back in the day on holidays, because I used to live in Tigaboo. And we'd go down to the marina and set up our little barbecue and watch people try and load their boats. Wind starts blowing.
Take wagers on how many back and starts and back and
Yeah,
forths.
and everyone's yelling at each other because everyone wants to get out of there. Yeah, Labor Day weekend's a great day to go.
Well, I guess there was some lady on some speedboat just absolutely losing her mind on them. And so one of Dominic's people, she just started yelling back at them. And there's this big old.
That's funny.
It's so much fun to go with somebody that knows what they're doing and just sit back and,
Yeah, 'cause
Let
that's
them
what we
do it,
do.
they
Just
do it.
pay and they do it.
I was like, dude, I don't want this stress.
Well, that was that guy. That was my son. He's the one doing it all.
I
Because
didn't tell
everyone
you.
else was like,
I didn't tell you, Beth bought a houseboat over the weekend because
Oh, really?
they had reservations and they didn't show
they canceled the reservation.
2 hours before.
2 hours before they were ready to launch. So we had
How
a
do they
big
do
choice. Yeah, how do they do that? They just
That's
send you an email and say, I'm sorry, your house.
Yeah, email, you're in your car.
So you just went
No
on
service.
and then you go buy one? I love it. That's
Pretty
amazing
much in a
branding.
nutshell, yes.
I love it.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
pretty much what went down.
Pretty funny.
Sight unseen,
Wow.
just happened to be available that weekend.
Wow.
That's so funny.
Where do you want me to sit?
All right, you're great right there.
All right.
Welcome to Lunch and Learn. Beth's gonna introduce John for us and just, yeah, eat and have some fun.
Cool. Cool. So I don't know, can you tell if there are people online or can you tell?
It says up at the top left.
Or am I just speaking to the ecosystem?
Top left, I don't know about it. Maybe you should.
Even if they're not on live, it'll be able to rebroadcast and
Yeah, there's.
No one there yet.
rebroadcast.
No one's there yet.
Okay, well, good,
But we have
then I will
people here.
speak to this audience. So, greetings, welcome to Lunch and Learn. As most of you know, I think I know most of you, I don't know if I know you. I'm Beth Colosimo. I caught you with your mouth open. So, I'm Beth Colosimo. You're Sean? Nice to meet you, Sean. I'm the executive director here for the Mill. And as some of you may or may not know, Tim left us a couple months ago. He actually happens to be working out here today, so say hey. He has no power at his office or at his house, so he came back to work at the Mill. It's perfect. They always come back, you know. So we have been on a search for a new director for the Mill. We've rebranded and kind of changed things up a little bit about how we want to go forward with this space and some of the initiatives that we have. And so I was fortunate to have over 90 applicants for the position that we posted, and was also fortunate enough to find our candidate internally. So I'm going to introduce John in just a minute, but where we want to go with this space is, you know, my vision has always been to build our own pipeline into creating more entrepreneurs out of our student body. As you've probably recognized when you're here, rarely, if ever, do you see someone who looks like a traditional Salt Lake Community College student. Although there isn't anything such as a traditional Salt Lake Community College student, because most of them are older or they've returned to school after many years. The average age is something like 26 or 27. But we find that there's a lot of interest in entrepreneurship and starting their own small businesses within our student base, but we're not reaching them. So fast forward about 3 years ago, we found and collaborated with a program through the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurs. There is an organization that exists that all they do is focus on entrepreneurship within community colleges. And we've become good friends and very connected with them. And they actually put money forth for a program to really support community college entrepreneurship. And so we've been able to plug into that. And we're in this kind of the second phase of a funding opportunity for us to get scholarships and money to help more students get involved in entrepreneurship. So we're hoping that that pipeline feeds into the mill, that they take advantage of the incubator space. And because the branding of the mill has been so successful, for those of you who've been around a while, as you know, we were the Miller Business Innovation Center, we were the Miller Incubator, and really not very cool or catchy names for a place that we want to kind of be a happening space to come and hang out and share ideas and be creative and be innovative. And, you know, here our name really didn't reflect that. And so under Tim's leadership, we did a bunch of focus groups that many of you participated in, and we looked at what rebranding would look like. And the mill has really stuck, and it has become probably the best branding we've ever done. I know you were involved in helping with that creative, and we're really happy with the brand. So what we've decided to do is that this whole entrepreneurship center is now going to be known as the mill. So initially it was just the incubator was the mill, but we're now kind of going to expand that brand to be everything that we do here under the entrepreneurship kind of label. And so there's going to be 3 primary pillars under the mill. And one of those primary pillars is incubation and co-working. So that's what this space is. And of course, there's lots and lots of things that go on under that particular brand or under this space. And then the second one is training and education. So we have numerous programs, as you know, through the SBDC. They do all kinds of workshops. We have the Veteran Entrepreneurship Program. We now have this Everyday Entrepreneurship Program. We have classes taught by the SBIR, by PTAC, by all of our partners. So that's pillar number 2, training and education. And then the third pillar is resources and partners. So we know that PTAC is here, the SBIR office is here, SCORE is here. We're very connected with the Women's Business Center. So that's kind of that third sleeve of everything else that we're connected to in the community, a lot of chamber events and various cybersecurity type organizations, you name it. So that's sort of the direction we're going, and that's why I wanted to expand the role here at the mill to have more of a director who's going to essentially oversee kind of that greater picture encompassing the students. We also have been able to take our entrepreneurship class into the main catalog. So students can now take Everyday Entrepreneur for credit. We're going to eventually incorporate Everyday Entrepreneur into new tenants that come to the mill and have them take that class. And what it is, and John will probably talk more about this, but it's really, how do I launch a business in 60 to 90 days and be flowing revenue? So these are not obviously high-tech app-type development companies that require a lot of time and development, but really more of that mom and pop, I want to get launched, how do I start, and how do I get into revenue within a fairly short period of time, and then wrap that with grant money that will go to them, but for $1,000, $2,000, $8,000, I could be launched. And then hopefully eventually also a revolving loan fund. So we're out doing a lot of fundraising and awareness branding campaign, and that again goes back to why the mill is a much easier sell. It's easier to explain versus, some stodgy, long-winded name. So for those of you who've been around, you know that we continue to evolve and innovate, which is really what you all do. And if we're not doing that too, then we're kind of doing a disservice to what we believe entrepreneurship and education training should be about. So with that, I'll introduce John. John has been at the college for a long time. We've worked together since I've been here. He's primarily been with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program, and he started the Park City Business Resource Center. So he's been heavily involved with the college for a long time, but he's also really been involved with the curriculum piece. And that was sort of that missing link, and that's why he was selected for this position, because he really understands the college side of this. I know all of you kind of forget that we're on this college campus sometimes because we sit so far outside of that, but he really is able to bridge both the entrepreneurship piece as well as the collegiate and curriculum piece together. So good things to come. So take it away.
All right, well, thanks. I guess I'll stand for a little bit. I might get tired and sit down, but no, I'm glad to be here. Again, my name is Jon Beutler. I've been at the college since 2010, and I'll get into that here. I'm going to give you a short history of how I ended up here. Some of you guys have been around for a while and will probably know some of the things that I've been involved with. But so I'll just dive in. I grew up in Ridgefield, Central Utah. Interesting, my high school I spent time figuring out how to graduate without attending. Girlfriends, writing papers for them. I did the whole thing. It was really, didn't take advantage of high school other than I had a riot. My senior project was I raised pigs for FFA. That was the big thing back then. I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. And so I went to my high school counselor, and this was the question. I still remember it. This was back in the 80s. I said, if I was to graduate college today, what job would make me the most money except for doctors? I'm really skittish about needles and blood and that, so I didn't want to go down that career. And he said, civil engineering. And I said, what the hell is that? He goes, you build things, bridges and buildings. I'm like, cool. So I signed up. I ended up getting a scholarship at Utah State for civil engineering, but I didn't go. I remember about 3 weeks before high school ended, there was a little technology school. It's pretty big now, but it's called DeVry. Maybe you may have heard of it or not. But back in the early 80s, it was a very popular electronics technology school, and I was really interested in robotics. I had model planes and driving stuff around and machining and all that. And so unbeknownst to my parents, I actually signed up, applied for scholarships or Pell Grants, and it was a lot more expensive than going to Utah State. Anyways, I went down to Arizona and had a good time. Got married at 17, had a kid. So that's what I guess what you do in Ridgefield. Took my wife and my child down there and met up with a group out of Santa Monica, California, that they were making electronic cash registers. That ones you actually plug in. This was way before the internet. And we were running on a proprietary network. I'd done some network development, and I was going to go to Santa Monica and create electronic cash registers, and then we were going to tie an inventory control system off the back. It wasn't real time. Back in the day, to do inventory, you had to sell stuff, put it on some sort of media, and then send the media via snail mail or whatever to your inventory, and then they would download that. Loved the beach, loved Santa Monica. Wasn't really excited about that part of technology. I came back to my mom's wedding, and I met a gentleman by the name of Dave Bailey. And I don't know if any of you ever ran across him, but he was a big shot at IBM and then started iOmega back in the early 80s doing, he had a technology to do high-speed storage. And I was up here for a week or so. I went out, befriended one of the engineers. I was working on a project for school that I ended up using the technology and then building robotics into it. And they offered me a job to come back to Layton instead of going to California. And there was a lot of money back then. You know, I was making maybe $4.50 an hour, and they offered me a job at, I think it was $47,000. So it was a lot of money. In fact, it was more. I bought a house right after that, and my house was less than what I was making that year, which I wish I could do that now. So I come to move up to work for Omega, and in the meantime, he had started a new company called Keiko, and it was a chip designer. And this is, again, a long time ago where chip design was really starting to pick up. Windows was just getting ready to release. Everything was on DOS. And he offered me a job, so I'm like, whatever. I really didn't know the difference between one or the other. But about 3 weeks after I started working at Keiko, my whole life changed. They sold Keiko for $133 million. And I was like, wow, looks so easy. I'm going to do this. So I got on the path of startups. After HP bought Keiko, I went to another startup down in Provo called Ceracore, and they were doing the same thing, chip design, only the first job at Keiko was all transistor based, so we were actually using transistors and capacitors and resistors. Ceracore was actually silicon based, so we would actually put one piece of silicon over the other piece, and that would be a transistor. So it was just down a little bit lower. Had a great time. That company got bought 3 times. The last one was by Metro Graphics. I didn't move. They wanted me to move to Beaverton, Oregon, and I didn't want to. I was in skiing and like that. So I stayed and went to work for a company called Century Software, who's still in business. Greg Hare was a ski bum. He didn't want to work. He wanted to ski, but he needed to make a living. And he used to work there was a PC store on, oh my gosh, maybe 2nd South, right off of Main Street back in the day. And it was before even Windows. This was DOS-based computers. And he worked there as a technician. This back in the early 80s. Came up with a technology. Well, one guy came in one day and said, hey, I need to figure out how to transfer a file from one computer to another. And again, this is before the internet, so we're using Banyan Vines or Beamer Whiteside or some other transmission layer. And he started a company. So I went to work for him. I started BBS back in 1988 or 89. Again, this is before the internet. There's no browsing or anything. The BBS, all we did is allow people to transfer files up and down, and then we housed news. And I don't know if you guys, have anyone here heard of news? Okay. News was an old program. It was basically like Facebook, except no pictures. It was all text-based, and you could sign up to any group, and you could upload and download files. But that spawned another career. I started an internet company in about 91, before X-Mission. I knew Pete. He was running at the university at the time. We launched with 9600 baud modems. So you guys even know what a modem is? That's how far back we went. That was a lot of fun. I got a lot of horror stories with that program. We did a lot of cool stuff. Had a really bad investor, which again is important for companies. But so I left and went back to Century Software. I had so much fun at Century Software with Greg, and we started doing some really cool stuff, mostly embedded Linux. I got into Linux with my internet company because we had no money and couldn't afford any of the operating systems, so we were running FreeBSD and Linux. And got involved with Linux, met Michael Timman at Red Hat. We became really good friends, and worked with IBM and Nokia. So we were doing some really cool stuff on the Nokia phone. And around 1998, we actually had a browser running on the Nokia 8200 communicator. It was an old phone that would flip up and had a quarter screen and a full Corky keyboard. And that was fun. We made a lot of noise in the industry. Got some big deals with Nokia and IBM. And then I took about a 10-year sabbatical. I was tired of the chase, and so I took some time off. I met Jack Britton. I was in the Utah Porsche Club, and he had a little Porsche, and we bombed around the States in our cars. And I remember we were up in Jackson Hole one day, and he was still the dean of the business school, and we were talking about commercialization and how they had all this cool stuff at the U, and that's kind of then he kind of went into the TCO and the tech commercialization office, and we remained really good friends. When he left that and Brian Cummings took it over, Brian actually worked with me at Century Software, so we kind of had this same desire and fun of chasing cool technologies. And around, well, it was not around, but in 2010, the TCO opened up their innovation center, and I don't know if you ever went there, but they had a huge floor, kind of similar to this, except they had a wet lab and a medical areas you go and do medical stuff. And we had the grand opening, and I'm sitting there, and this guy walks in. He's just big towers, big guy, and I'm like, "I know you." And he goes, "Yeah, we used to work at Keiko. My very first job, that was my boss. His name's Glenn Stewart." And he's like, "What are you doing?" We got all this. And he goes, "Well, I work for the SBDC at the Miller campus as an advisor." And I'm like, "Really? What does that entail?" And he told me what's going on. He goes, "And I live in Park City." And he goes, "By the way, we want to open up Park City. And you got to come down and talk to us." So I come down, talk to Rex. Falkenrath was the director here at the time. And that's what started my little journey here at the college, was in 2010. We opened up the Park City Business Resource Center. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of ambition, but it was a lot harder than we thought, as far as we wanted to create an innovation center up there, very similar to Aspen Institute. So I was working with the Park City Angel Network. We had some big players that wanted to bring that in. So I met with Paul Strum and Nathan Furr. They wrote a book called Missy Melt Skeleton. It's a way to launch smartly when you want to launch a product or service. It's a book on following that. And we could never get the buy-in by Park City, mostly because the real estate is so expensive up there. And having a 10,000 square foot facility up in Park City is very expensive. So, but we continued to work. We built that program. That was really the very first cohort we launched of NISI. We just actually designed. They wrote the book. Paul and Nathan wrote the book, but a gentleman, Ryan Angus, who used to be here in the corner, he was a business, and then Steve Roy, who worked for Ustar, and it was also involved with Goldman Sachs. And so we wrote this booklet for Nellet Skeleton. It's basically the handbook to go through the process of starting a business. And we ran a first cohort up in Park City with angels. We had we had 5 companies, and each company had an angel that sat with them in the room. We had one really good success. You guys ever heard of a company called Grow Social? They were in that first cohort. They had a $58 million exit 18 months after they took that class. So it was very positive, and it was a lot of fun. And then everything kind of died down until Beth got here. I mean, it was kind of quiet. I was full time with Goldman and doing Parkside BRC, but we really need to get a lot of traction on creating an environment. And so when Beth got here, we started just spitballing ideas. I had, because of my time constraints in Park City, I had to cut back on my one-on-one mentoring in Park City, and so I started creating this class. It was based off that first cohort of Nellet Skeleton and some of the ideas that we brought in through Goldman, because I could teach multiple people rather than one at a time. And so that was kind of the beginning of the EEP as it stands today. I can't remember what I called it first. I had a weird name. I had 103060 at one time, and we had all these funny names. But yeah, so that evolved into what is now the Everyday Entrepreneurship Program. Through that, we met the EEB, Everyday Entrepreneur Venture Fund, Chip and Stuart out of the Northeast. And they were very successful business owners that wanted to give back to what they considered everyday entrepreneurs, which are not necessarily not technical, but people that are, like most of us, the 95% of the population out there are what we consider everyday entrepreneurs. They may build a technology or a product that scales and they can grow to tens of millions, and we have a bunch of those that we know. But it was really focused on if you look at Utah, if you have a technology idea or a product, you have Silicon Slopes, and you can go there and they have a lot of opportunity for you. But if you are trying to launch a landscaping business or take over a dry cleaner or build a new product that's not technology driven, they really don't have a roadmap for you. So that was kind of what this Everyday Entrepreneur Program is. And yeah, that's Beth and Tim applied for the first phase. We were fifth out of. They took 4 colleges. We came in 5th, but we still worked with Chip. They put us on their advisory board, so we maintained communication over the last 3 years. And then just recently, they started the phase 2, and we're involved with phase 2. So there's some matching money that they gave us, and that program is all about kind of the things we talked about here: education and access to capital. They're doing the same thing at a national level. They're going out after big dollars. We're doing it here locally, going after big dollars, but it's going to be a collaboration between us and NACI, and with matching funds available. And so it's really going to be an exciting opportunity for us. Their goal is in the next 5 years to raise 10 million, which will be given back to the participants in that school or in that program. So, we have an opportunity to grow our fund. I think this year we can go up to 250,000 in matching funds, but next year that will grow. So, that took up most of my time for the last 2 years. And then, like Beth said, recently we just got into the catalog at the college. So now it's a 3-credit class taught through, I teach it over at Redwood Road. The goal is to get more teachers involved and to really ramp it up this coming winter. So I'm working with some of the student services over there and some of the entrepreneur groups that they have. And so that's kind of the history of how we got here today. So, do I have any questions? I don't know if anyone has any question or that or any.
We might talk a little bit about too how our hope with the incubator clients and the integration with mentors and interns and their involvement on some other cool projects.
So that's kind of the history of how I got here, and now I want to jump into what Beth was talking about. It's kind of what the vision is, what I think the vision is, and how working with the board here, we can kind of go down some of these initiatives and really kind of solidify our current offerings. And like Beth said, we have 3 pillars now that we're starting to wrap our hands around, and the co-location space and the incubator is really kind of like the core piece, because that's where people can come. It's a physical location where they can come to get help and to meet other network. And then the education, EEP right now is a 3-credit class. I'm working with Redwood Road on creating an 18-credit certificate in entrepreneurship. What's really cool about that project is you could get a certificate in entrepreneurship, a certificate in, let's say, marketing, and a certificate in small business. and be, a few credits shy of having an associate's degree from the college. So these stackable certificates are crucial, especially in today's environment, and it's pretty exciting to be able to offer that to the students and be more integrated with Redwood Road and the academic side. And then again, with that education, Beth mentioned all of our partners. They do teach a lot of cool topics and a lot of things that are meaningful for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And then the third part is, access to the funding and then the mentoring and advising. So back to, I'm going to kind of turn into the EEP and what that really looks like and what long-term it could be for us here at this facility. So we're now involved with the development office at Salt Lake Community College. So let me back up a little bit. Back to when I first started here, we've never had a relationship with Redwood Road. We've always had our own little silo. We're economic development. We're not academic. We build a silo here, this building, and we could never really interact with Redwood Road. And what's interesting about Redwood Road is, there's 60,000 students that go through various doors through the college every year. And a large majority of those are small business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're in the workforce. We have never really been able to get our hands around those and let them know what's going on over here. So I think having a education component that they agree on or they help promote is the first, one of the first steps. So that program, I'm now working, like I said, I'm working with, they have a group over there called DECA, and I can't remember what the acronym is.
Who was in DECA?
Is anyone here in DECA at the college? Anyways,
We don't know.
I remember DECA, but I don't ever remember knowing what it stood for.
I remember that too.
yeah. So, so I'm working with Tyler. He's the president of DECA this year. I think they do 2-year stints. So but the goal there is just to really build the entrepreneurship culture, in Salt Lake County and in the surrounding area. We're really good at the economic development side, and we're hoping now to become experts in the academic side too, so we can reach out to these people. We talk about building, a funnel or a pipeline of potential people to work here. That's a great source that we can start, that we can go after. A couple other things with EVF and actually my work with Goldman Sachs is, I work on a daily basis with 21 other community colleges throughout the United States. People that are in my space, they're directors of entrepreneurship centers, or they're alumni managers for small business owners. And so we really haven't tapped into that group. But I think that's another opportunity as we look to build our awareness, is to share resources, best practices, and common ideas with these other community colleges. I think, for me, in the next, as I get to know what you guys are doing, get to know more you personally, is really focus on awareness here locally first. We'll get some national awareness with our EEVF, with some national press that'll be going out in October. But I think as the mill is kind of getting rebranded, I really love the name, by the way. Whoever came up with that was fantastic. It's a great name. It's really kind of what we do. We mill and grind and create stuff. And so I think the awareness of just the mill itself is what I'm gonna be focusing on, along with a bunch of other stuff. But and how do we do that? Well, we're now in the development office. I said, the development office is, they're on a $60 million raise over the next several years. We now have a bucket. We're working on a flyer today that when people go out for donors, the mill now is an option for them to donate money to. So that's pretty exciting. And then we do have, they know what we're doing now. And I think that's with Beth pushing, Clifton and everyone around, we can call up the director of the business school or the marketing school, and they know who we are. And so that's never happened before. I can call Redwood and they answer the phone, which, a year ago, they're like, who are you? Even though it's an internal number. So just building that awareness, I think is going to be critical for us. I think that is about all. I didn't have any other notes that I wanted to talk about. Is there any?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you all and questions and direction that you want to see the mill go and additional support services. Chris Heslop is here, and some of you met him a couple weeks ago when we did all of the new SBDC advisors. They're going to be integrally involved in supporting the mill as well and doing some workshops up here for us. There's just a treasure trove of knowledge downstairs that we're going to tap in more deliberately. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you all in terms of what you're looking for and how we can evolve even more so.
I have a question. It's all right. So in terms of current programs and initiatives, we've talked a lot about this intern program, and there's some additional financial support to see that be successful and integrate into what's happening here. What's your vision of that and how?
Of that particular program or the concept of interns?
Of that particular program.
Okay, that particular program, that's probably more the CARES program, the Hope Corps. I'm involved with two projects, and my involvement was we submitted some Goldman alumni, and the Goldman alumni that got chosen, I'm kind of the point. Other than that, I don't know a whole lot about that.
Well,
program.
I think one of the goals is, and it's always been challenging to have direct interns from Salt Lake Community College, as much as everyone would like that to occur. But what I'd love to see is some of these kids who are getting involved in the internship program, the EEP class, DECA, those kinds of connections where those students really do say, hey, I want to go work for a startup. I've taken EEP. I think I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'd love to be around that ecosystem and come work for one of them. And so I'm hoping that that's a bridge that we can eventually build to have a more systematic way of feeding those students. And then this Hope Corps thing has really taken on a life force. That's dependent upon funding. Sorensen funded, not Sorensen, the Ivory Foundation actually funded Hope Corps. And it was initially developed around COVID and crisis companies. And if it evolves to be more than that, I think they'll continue to grow. They've seen a huge need, so much so that they couldn't even meet the demand for the amount of companies who put in for requests. They didn't even have enough students to feed all of the companies. So I think now that they see that there's a need, Rick Brown downstairs is sort of the point person for Hope Corps internships, and he's placing them as fast as he can. So I think there's kind of potentially two tracks that I'm looking at going down in hopes that one or both of them stick.
Any thoughts in terms of how that might directly impact Mill and the Mill members?
Well, what I'd love is if we can raise enough funding that you all don't have to pay for those interns, similar to how Ivory has set up their foundation, is they pay the interns to come and work and gain that knowledge from you all. So that would be fantastic. I have lots of money I want to spend on lots of things, but It's all about, that's why we have to get this branding right, and that's why we have to get the messaging and the awareness to say, look at all of these cool things that you want to do. And you know how people love to give scholarships to needy students. Well, if we could plug that to say, you're gonna help them get their education, and oh, by the way, they're gonna have an opportunity to go work for a startup.
If I could share one thing on that, don't be afraid about offering unpaid internships. I'm working on a project, we got multiple students from Penn State, Columbia, University of Utah, top-notch people, unpaid internships. They're excited. Now, we work very hard to make sure that it's a rewarding, mutual benefit, because on an unpaid internship, you can't have them getting copied, and you don't want them getting copied. We've had tremendous success on one of my projects with multiple, these are people that we were excited to offer paid positions to, and we don't have much money, and these are great people. We've got 3 that we're paying $600 a month, and they're putting in 30 hours a week. And these are top-notch people. But, think about it. If you're in school right now, how do you have something on your resume? Exactly.
Yeah.
Who hired for interns unpaid over the summer? Nobody. They're scrambling to get something on their resume. You have value you can offer. They have value they can give.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, we now, because of our involvement with the development office, we now can go out and ask, legitimately ask for funds, which, again, to go back to when we first started the Park City Business Resource Center, the very first thing we wanted to do was open up a seed fund for outdoor products. And we could never get that thought off on by the development office. So now we have a bucket, and we have, internally we have a lot of smaller buckets we can put in, and interns is one of those. So it's now, we're just gonna go out and try and fundraise. And I think to Chris's point too is, how do you tell those students over Redwood Road that we're here? And that's gonna be, kind of my job. And because, short term is really to create that awareness. Because if they know exactly, what Chris said, if they knew that there's a cool place to come over, there's companies from all gamuts, every industry, pick one, and get plugged in, I think that will happen.
You had a question?
Well, kind of question, comment was like, how many people here had ever done an internship? And it's like, when I was in college, I had 3 different internships, never got paid for any of them.
Yeah.
And the whole point of that was when you get out and you got that piece of paper and you're sitting across the table with the company, interviewing with them, that what you did academically is great, but what they really want to see is real world experience. And so every internship I did, I was thrilled to have it just so I could put that on my resume. And I never got paid for any of them, and I never expected it really, depending upon what the results of that were. Completely separate from that, having 2 children right now in college, who my son is attending classes at the University of Utah on a road trip at Pocatello to go climbing, because everything's on Zoom, right? And I know that there are going to be substantial challenges in this current environment that we're facing with higher education. For people attending classes, wanting to attend classes when they're not physically in class. Do you guys foresee any specific challenges, be it financial or otherwise, affecting what you're doing now at the Mill or your future aspirations of taking the Mill due to the confinement that we have now with COVID?
Well, so the EEBF, the class, the 3-credit class, will be online. I don't know if I'm going to get there by January, but it will be a completely online, where basically you have 16 weeks to complete it at your own pace. So I'm working with the curriculum developers on that piece, but chances are it won't happen until next spring. But that's one thing that we're doing, because that is, you are right. We don't know what the winter's going to look like, or even next year, and so we need to be able to, build products and services that people can get to.
Well, we launched last night the veteran entrepreneurship program, and it's through Zoom, which isn't ideal. I would much rather have a meeting like this of entrepreneurs that can sit eyeball to eyeball and talk to one another. But we recognize that, those challenges exist. One of the frankly concerns that I have with the mill is everyone going to get so used to, I'm thrilled to see people in this room today, but is everyone going to get so used to working from home that they're like, yeah, I don't really need my membership at the mill. I don't really, we don't want to lose that collaborative environment and this workspace of bringing people together. And I would love to have some young people come here and see it being vibrant, right? And not 4 people kicking around like there is in most days. So it's kind of, how do we bring people back safely? But, this COVID thing is going to be a short term, I'm a much longer term thinker than 12 months of disruption in our lives. But yeah, we're going to have to evolve all of our programs and think differently, but that's part of innovation.
And I think that's one of and I have that written down on my questions that I want to get answered in the next, couple of months is, why are you guys here? And what's a compelling reason to come here? Because, when we start working with students, we want to say, the reason you want to come to the mill is because there's there's the networking, there's opportunities to see so many different companies across industries to get involved, in such a small space to get involved with so many people. So that question is, what is a compelling reason to come here? Why would someone who's gone through 6 months of COVID working at home, give up that comfort of home and coming here?
Yeah, I'm your textbook example for that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the only reason I joined this was specifically for that interaction. I mean, starting businesses run out of my home and modern e-commerce, everything is outsourced, right? So my workday is spent alone in an office in front of a computer screen, emailing other people. And honestly, my background, I came from a sales background. All day long, all I did was have interpersonal interactions. And I lost that, right? And you kind of lose a little bit of self-perspective and all that when you don't have that interpersonal communication. And again, you don't know what you don't know. And so when I kind of earlier this year decided to kind of pursue this and come back here, it is specifically for that reason. You can't have that interpersonal one-on-one feedback and connection through a computer. You just don't have the same level of that, nor do you get the exposure to the ideas or the other things that you didn't even know existed, right? And how do you find out about those things? This is the perfect place to do that. Brian's actually the guy that brought me here 6 years ago.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, any other thoughts around, again, building awareness? I mean, I want to make it exciting. I want to make it a place for you guys that want to come here. I think we all do. And, I've been involved with some stuff behind the scenes more than you guys, and that'll all come out. But I'm excited about the opportunity with working now with Redwood Road. I mean, 60,000 people go through those doors every year. And we need to communicate with them, capture them, and then give them a reason to come over here. And that reason is why you guys are here. We need to, I don't know how you package it and label it and say this is why, but we need to work on that.
Community.
Yeah.
So do we have, I know when Tim kind of left, kind of going off what you were saying with kind of the interpersonal reaction, Tim was starting to push a lot of us to make goals and push ourselves to be better and kind of starting to chop at our bits to get us going. But it also helped that we were a community, because do we have some plans to build that back? Are we still going to be doing?
Yeah, so, well, I think.
We're doing the mentor groups.
Yeah, the mentor groups were great. I mean, they definitely could grow, and I think this could be a good one. But yeah, what else?
Well, I
did
think,
like all that stuff.
Well, with my experience with Goldman Sachs, and again, I've been there since 2012. is the accountability that everyone puts on each other. And so having that accountability is what is really gonna drive the reason you decide to come here today rather than stay home. And what does that look like? I've met with I was in the last board meeting, and it's up to you guys to decide what that looks like. I think clearly having goals really makes that, having a goal and having, accountability, is very strong for small businesses. It keeps you going, and that's part of I think the community and the culture here is to have goals and accountability and a reason to come here.
No, I like that because I'm kind of a incubator slut, if you have a way, because I spent time at Panda Labs, Sustainable Startups, Holodeck before it became Axis, and the Impact Hub. But you always kind of saw like when Holodeck took the downturn, it was when community started to not participate as much. And Impact Hub's on that down.
But and I'll throw out an example there. So I'm working with Hillsborough Community College in Florida, and they have their 2-year college. They have about 700 students in their entrepreneurship program in various degrees. But when they get to a certain level, which let's just say it's the highest level, they have to, in order to continue there, you have to participate. And you have to go to a certain amount of meetings. You've got to go to webinars. You've got to fill out your metrics. And so I think that's something to look at. And with what the board's doing and that direction, I think that we should look at that. What does that accountability look like? Because if you're not participating, first of all, you're not going to get anything out of it if you're not participating. And quite frankly, your participation is what everyone else is kind of looking for. They want to hear your feedback. They want to know what you're doing. They want to, they may know someone in your supply chain or your customer chain that they can introduce you to. But how do you build that up?
Well, and I've always maintained too that there's this continuum that while you're here, you're theoretically building up your business and you're growing it to the point where you're outgrowing us. As much as we love you all, we don't want you to homestead here. That's not the goal. The goal is to have that continuous pipeline of new innovators and new businesses and new experiences to keep the place vibrant. I remember when I got here, some of these companies had been here forever. They had no reason to leave. It wasn't run as an incubator or an accelerator to help grow your business to the point where you don't need us anymore. And you always need us, but you know what I'm saying. So that's always been kind of my objective too, and that you're helping bring up the next entrepreneurs that will give that cycle or pay it forward.
And I think there's a lot of room to grow there. You look at the success of Silicon Slopes. I think there's room for the mill to kind of achieve similar status through helping everyone else. It was interesting that the work calculator, let's see, what do they call it? The job calculator. Basically, for every job in Point of the Mountain at Lehigh, creates 7 ancillary jobs. And so they call it it's probably down since COVID, but pre-COVID it was right at 1 to 7. So that means there's 7 people out there that don't have anywhere to go, anywhere to hang out, anything to do. And I think that's an area where we can become very, very strong in the community. And quite frankly, a lot of those companies, you don't have to be a technology company to be very successful. There's a lot of successful companies. We see it with Goldman Sachs, people making baby hats and sheets and selling used cars. Those guys are extremely successful and scaling their businesses. So I think that's a place where we can hang out and to help that industry.
In terms of that, I'm curious, what is your vision in terms of creating more of those success stories? It's one thing to point to people that somehow just find their way there by luck, but the reality is there are a lot of small businesses here that are just dealing with practical, everyday,
And
trying to
they're-
grow my business kind of problems?
So, well, one of them is again, getting tied into, the college. I mean, the journalism department has kids wanting to write stories about companies. We're trying, we're lining that up. Having a directory, having more press releases, having more exposure to what we're doing here is, I think, very important. When I was at Century Software, we were all about press releases. I mean, we had every second of every month, we had a press release. And that really built awareness. And I think we need to do that here. We need to publish about companies. We need to have, one of the things that Monique and I were talking about, and we brought that up in the board meeting too, is what does it look like? What does the platform look like? And for example, with Goldman Sachs, we have our own little app that people tell success stories, but we also have an online place where you can go and tell success stories. And we need to build something like that here. I want to know what you guys are doing. I want to know when you get the new customer. I want to know when you get a new hire or get a big deal or release a new product or service. I mean, those are the things that I want to know about that we can help, publicize what we're doing here.
Okay, so to play off of, I think, your comment, Tim was starting to require, hey, you need to do these certain things, and they're vocal about it, and then the mentor groups being held accountable to it. You just said you want to know. How do I know you want to know? I mean, I came here today, I can hear you know. You just want me to start writing emails when I think about it?
Well, so let me tell you, let me just give you a raw example of what I've seen happen. This happens all the time. So our alumni has a closed group on Facebook, and I'm not a big Facebook user. There may be other platforms out there, but this is what happens. So people, not only are people saying, oh, hey, we just opened a new office, we just released a new product, we've hired, we're looking to hire, but there's this, oh, I got a flat tire. Does anyone know how to fix it? And some lady that's, oh, my husband's best friend's next door neighbor can, and then we get these, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you do? Well, I do this. Oh, great. Can I? And so there's that whole interaction. So I think having a platform of just for people to communicate is important. And I know that we talked about Slack. LinkedIn is potentially, but to answer your question would be, we have 100 companies that we work with here. How cool it'd be to just have that interaction. Oh, I just got a new customer. Oh, I'm looking for an accountant. I'm looking for someone to help me with processes. Does anyone have any experience in LinkedIn? Those types of things will help build the network and introduce everyone to everyone. So.
Okay, just heard that in concept, but right now, I'll tell you what I use is Monique. I've been thrilled that Monique is coming to this position. I would love to see, and I dreamt of this before I came to the Mill, where is the entrepreneur concierge service? Which would mean I need an X, a Y, and a Z, and then they happen to know where those people are. I use Monique for that because I don't know of any other way to do it here.
Go ahead.
I'm just like thinking out loud here, and there's a web form for everything, right? And I'm thinking if you had some sort of mail web form for exactly like that, yesterday, for example, my daughter, her battery was dead, right? So you get online, Volkswagen Tiguan 2009 battery, and there's 100 different forms out there, and what battery do you recommend? What are the goods? What are the bads? So the only thing is any interest you want, there's a website or a forum or a group of interested people that can comment on that, right? If you want to learn how to make an Alfredo sauce, it doesn't matter what it is, you just go out to the web, and there's almost every item of interest, doesn't matter how diverse it is, there's some web forum where people that share those common interests chime in. And I thought if we could have the Mill forum where we just go in and it's like, hey, I'm looking for somebody that's an expert in social media, or I need somebody that has expertise in, fulfillment, e-commerce, distribution, whatever it is. And then the people that are on the forum can just type in. I mean, that would be a simple solution to that. And it's all we're doing is replicating what exists. I mean,
Yes.
every other company or interest out there has it.
And then the issue is, well, do we want to use like an existing platform like Facebook to do that?
No,
Or do you want to use, well, the reason I say that is if let's say you want to promote a success story and you want, and let's say you are a Facebook user or a social media user, if you have a proprietary forum or one that doesn't have the plugin, chances are you're not going to post it in two places. And we've seen that with Goldman with 9,700 companies. They refuse to post something twice. They want to post it a single time. That's why, again, I'm not a Facebook user. But what I like about Facebook and Instagram and some of the more popular ones is you can write it once and post it out to a bunch of different places. That's the only reason I bring that up.
I don't know. It's just something to think of. I mean, and you said you drive a Porsche.
I used to. I don't know.
So, because how many Porsche forums are there out there? Right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Exactly.
But again, I was only interested in my little community, though. I wasn't interested in what's going on in Arizona.
Well, but I think to her point is that she's saying, okay, within our little, the Mill collaboration, what exists out there? And if we were all had access to, that forum.
Well, and I
so
think
we
we're still
post-
trying to figure that out. We started Slack.
The current one's Slack.
And,
That's what they're
Ms.
using now here.
Macy has a really, really cool platform that we'll probably adopt called Startup Space. And it's entirely designed and built for startup spaces. I mean, it's exactly what it says. And it does all of the things that we want it to do, and it builds that community. And hey, does anybody know somebody that has, and it's just one of those, another tools that you deliberately have to go to as part of the community. But we're looking to incorporate something like that.
Yeah, and right now we do have Slack and kind of everything that you're saying there. That's what we're trying to build, that channel out that way currently. But I think you're gonna continue with the goal setting and the sales process and the business process and the mentor groups. You're not stopping.
Nothing's stopping.
Yeah, all
Everything's
that
moving
is
forward.
continuing.
My short term, so we're right in the middle of a couple of RFPs. And then with our Everyday Entrepreneur Venture Fund, we have what we call funding cycles. So we're gonna have 2 a year, and one of them starts in the next 30 days. So I'm gonna be busy up until, with that program up until the end of the year doing that. So we're not gonna, my goal is not to change anything, but keep promoting. But I think you're right. And one of the things that that I think is missing is a platform for people to see what's going on. Hillsborough, again, I keep going back to Hillsborough. They just happen to be at the top of the list right now. They have a great Facebook page, and their entrepreneurship center, they have their Friday meetup like bagels, but they promote, push it out. It's on there. They push the video out. The community is involved. They get traction from people not involved with entrepreneurship. They still get exposed to them because of this awareness that they have. And again, I don't know. And then, do you want it to be public or private, or do you just want to just, there's all of those questions that need to be answered. And that's up to you guys to decide on. But I think we need something because, we have our goal is to keep promoting, and I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about here in the next, 4 months. So I need to be talking. My goal is to get press release once a month and talking about cool stuff that's happening here. And so, I'm going to need to know what's going on in all you guys' lives because, we can, how cool to be to have, success stories in a press release that gets sent out to every student and to all of our partners in Salt Lake County, once a month. And potentially nationally with what we're working with some of the other colleges too.
Yeah, and ideally, we're still kind of using the board to help us.
Yeah, that's all gonna be driven by the board, they're talking, they wanna use, some of them wanna use LinkedIn. That, I think, again, that all that stuff needs to be, bubbled out.
I remember it down.
But the one thing I do like about the more common platforms is if that's where you guys hang out, that's where you're gonna be posting stuff, and so if we don't know about it. I used to track all 600 alumni's different Facebook page, and I used to go in every day and my feed would just go crazy, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I created a group and said, okay, you tell me, the cool stuff that's going on in your life.
Anyway, good to see you, Carrie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Made an effort to welcome you. I knew you as an educator
Yes.
and now you're a director.
If you guys have any questions, I'm just sit over there. You got my email. Again, if you have any comments, suggestions, please let me know. Because again, I want to, I'm not gonna be able to do it without you guys. So I need to make sure you guys are happy and are getting stuff done. And this whole awareness thing is, I think, is critical. So.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Greg.
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Just gonna come and see you.
I have a couple questions.
I have a favor.
Yeah.
And so you're official finance director.
We
Congratulations, dude.
got this
Fantastic.
grant with this
Um,
NACI organization.
And you live in Park City?
One of the
You're in Park